Hey guys, this is Hiram Lodge, and you're listening to Recap Rewind.
What is up, everybody? This is Recap Rewind. I'm J-Lag.
And I'm NB.
And this episode is recapping and reviewing Riverdale Season 5, Episode 12, and it's called Chapter 88, favorite number, Citizen Lodge.
Citizen Lodge. And don't forget, guys, stick around for the ending of the podcast, because as usual, we're going to go through our recap, roundups, our best moments, our MVPs, LVPs. You know what it is. I just want to quickly say here that our Twitter, we got suspended. So we have a new Twitter now. We don't know really what happened, but you guys were messaging us being like, guys, where are you? So we started a second account at recap_rewind pod, POD. We'll put it up on the screen here, so be sure to follow us on Twitter, because right now we can't get into our original account. So if you want to tweet us, we're also on Instagram, so we're always like alive.
We're somewhere
waiting to hear your roundups.
Yeah, well, I think we pulled a few of them together. You guys called us out on Instagram. We got some from Twitter, so thank you so much for submitting.
Yeah, so we'll do that at the end of the podcast, so stick around for that.
Yep. And as always, to our continuing listener and brand new ones, thank you for joining. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow us at our new Twitter account.
You want to say it one more time?
Recap_rewind pod.
All right. Okay. Well, you know what, Jayla? We're so excited. We're beaming with excitement. This was a long, hyped, awaited episode. I'm sure if you go back in our archives, we say that we wanted an origin story for Hiram Lodge since season 2. Yeah. So we get this episode. We are so excited to get into it. This is our first time discussing it. We're gonna pop off. We're gonna pop off. It's gonna be a lit podcast. I'm just guys, sit down, get your popcorn, get ready.
Let's do this. Happen. So just off the top, a little trivia. Yeah. So obviously the title of the episode, Citizen Lodge, is a play on Citizen Kane, which is a classic 1941 film, black and white. And the synopsis is essentially the investigation of a publishing tycoon's dying words reveals conflicting stories about his scandalous life. And then it kind of backtracks. If you're a film student, this movie, it's one of those movies.
I kind of wish they did, the title to me didn't do much. I felt like they could have had another title that would have been so much more suited for this episode. But I ain't gonna be mad at it.
I think it worked because I think that they did kind of play with the motif of going into the past and into the future, because that's how Citizen Kane kind of falls. It's told in jumps, time jumps kind of. But yes, as a general, what are your thoughts? Just give us a synopsis of how you felt about this episode.
Synopsis, it was amazing. I'm a huge mafia film fan. So this was an accumulation, and they threw everything into this 45 minutes. So I was I'm getting the references. But they did such a beautiful job. Not only the writing, the production, the way that the story even starts to transition to the past, you know, Mark Consuelos, his son Michael, everything just was amazing. Reggie, we got so much juicy storyline that we're deprived of. And I'm guys, and literally our whole Twitter timeline, now we are back on Twitter, I can see the tweets. They're guys, they could actually write an episode, guys, this was so good, it's there is potential. So it's great to see that they are doing that, and we got an amazing episode last night.
I do feel like it was almost like a standalone episode. When I was watching it, it was almost as if I wasn't watching Riverdale, because to everyone's point, the writing was different. The direction, how they told the story is so unique in terms of what we've seen from Riverdale. But I do love that, you get these Riverdale moments throughout the episode to remind you that we're watching Riverdale. You have those moments with Hermione and Alice and Penelope having that catty moment later, and even later on with Pops and the bloody Pops milkshakes. There's all these funny moments where as serious as it got, you're still it's still Riverdale, so you can still kind of enjoy it and really appreciate for what it is. Just echoing what MB just said, it was such a good episode. I was so excited as soon as I as soon as we watched it, I was like, oh, I need to talk to someone. I messaged MB right away and was like, oh, like it is so good.
Guys, we watched it so late last night that I was on my couch until one being like, oh my god, like oh my god, like I was like, especially so after lit. Like the ending, the ending was so good. And I think it shows you kind of hopefully like where the show is veering off into like this really like mature area of storytelling and writing. And I saw a couple of tweets that was like, nobody cares about Hiram Lodge. Why would you like write his story? And it's like, you guys don't get it. You guys were the ones waiting for that Gargoyle King to come back and give you some ice cream. This is not like, clearly like we are on two sides of the spectrum. For sure. Here,
this is not the episode for you, I guess, if you're not into that backstory and understanding that whole piece. But I feel like if you hated Hiram, this makes you understand him and love his character even more. Totally. And, you know, I think you have to appreciate all aspects of Riverdale, including this story, because he is kind of like this main villain, and understanding like why he does what he does. It makes sense. Anyway, we'll get into it. Let's get into it.
And just really quickly, we'll get into it. I also want to just set this up, guys. I do think sometimes shows build up so that they could bring down.
Of course, absolutely. Like, so we're waiting for that moment.
Maybe this is the season for Hiram where like this is it.
We'll see. Like, yeah, exactly.
Because it's like now we're on his side. Now we're rooting for him. So it's like maybe this was all planned. Timing was everything.
That like dream that never comes true. Yeah.
Totally.
It'll be more tragic.
We'll get to that.
Anyway, let's get into that.
Yeah.
Yes. So starting right off the top of this episode, like,
let's do it.
I wish I had a fan beside me, because that montage opening up the entire episode, I was like, ooh. Like it's just like basically Hiram working out, doing push-ups, doing jumping jacks, like shirtless everywhere. I was obviously living, and over top the entire thing, it's Jughead narrating, you know, Michael Corleone, all these different gangsters have origin stories. Like Hiram is no different. This is his origin story. Essentially, he just says that this is the reason why we're doing this episode.
He's like, you gotta explain why we're doing this.
Yeah.
One of the great things that I do love about these stories is that there's an idea of the anti-hero, which is like they're obviously villains. We know them as villains, but hold on, underneath those layers, there's actually someone who like their intentions and their motivations started out genuine. Along the way, greed comes and things happen and it gets a little corrupted. But at the core of what it is, he's a family man and he was doing everything, you know, for his family. So getting to examine that was just very exciting. And
and I think you kind of get that vibe from him. Like, you know, you make the assumption that he is really loyal to his family, despite all the crappy things that we've seen Hiram do to his family throughout the years. But watching it and watching that kind of past hit you, it kind of takes you in a different way and really makes you understand him in a different way.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's keep going. So it cuts to Reggie seeing his dad at the lot that he sells cars in.
Car lot. Yeah. Which
car lot.
Like Pop's Diner.
I know. I'm like, is it the same set?
Like
they just like roll cars into it. Yeah. So basically he sees his dad and he's working for his dad, but obviously we know that he's trying to pay off his dad's debt toward Hiram, because Hiram gave him a loan when he was on hard times. And his dad says, you know, don't forget the little meeting that we have later. Reggie's like, don't worry, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Reggie goes to visit his friend. He goes to visit Hiram, but before that we see Hiram on the phone and he's talking to some mystery person, which we find out who it is at the very end of the episode. But basically he's alluding to the fact that something needs to happen tonight. Like they found someone and it needs to happen tonight.
Like, oh really?
They're gonna deal with it.
Okay, I'm on it.
Yeah, so still mystery. So already I'm intrigued. I'm like, ooh, they're already setting up some sort of mystery. Don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's gonna come back around. So then Reggie comes in with a briefcase and he like pulls out all this money. He's like, this is my dad's debt. He's good to go, right?
Yeah.
And Hiram's like, okay, well, cool. What does that mean for you now? And Reggie says he wants a higher position. He wants to do something that's a little bit more top level. And he says he's got a lot of really good ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I love Reggie, but I feel like sometimes, what are your good ideas, Reggie?
Or like, maybe he never got a chance to say it.
Anyway, I'm of course I'm rooting for him, but I'm like, your great ideas are
You know
working
what?
for a gangster.
Don't
but
hate
sure.
on him. Homeboy has way more character depth than Kevin ever did. So let's not even hate on Reggie right now.
Absolutely. No, not at all.
Also, Charles is a really good actor. Like he brings everything to Reggie's character. Mm-hmm. And this partnership, like them together on screen, was so unexpected, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And especially going back to who, Hiram was and connecting that to where Reggie is now in his life. Oh my God, everything was just perfectly like,
it just all worked out so well.
Yeah.
So Reggie says that he wants this higher position. Hiram says he entertains it. He says, okay, cool. I guess I'll see what we can do. But first I want you to get me a ghost gun that is not traceable. And Reggie says, okay, cool. I'll do it as soon as I come back from the lot. Cuts to the lot. Reggie and his dad are trying to sell this car to this dad and the son. And just as an FYI, this is the reason why like Reggie's dad was losing money, because he's clearly
like the worst salesman.
He's the worst salesman in the world. He basically like looks at the guy and he goes like, you don't want to cheap out on your son, like get this car. And the guy's like, are you kidding me? And then he's about to leave. Bye. I'm like, wow, you really suck at your job. And then Reggie steps in and he like does it really well. He sways them and he like kind of paints this picture. And then he's basically saying like, this kid's going to get laid in this car. And he's like, I'll take it. So
the kid was like, I'm down.
He's like, let's do it. So they sell the car. And then as soon as they go inside, Reggie's dad is like yelling at Reggie, being like, you shouldn't have done that. That was my sale. He's kind of getting jealous about it or whatever. And Reggie,
make any sense, because it's like you're in the same company.
I know, you should have been like high-fiving each other, like chill. So you can obviously see that there's been this dynamic for a long time, but now Reggie's an adult and he knows he can fight back. So, he does say, I got it done. I figured it out. So like, what's the big deal? And he also goes on to say that he's paid off his debt to Hiram. So he's like, we're done there, but I'm still going to probably work for him. And his dad is a little upset about it. He's like, I don't want to work here. Like, you're a loser. I don't like, he doesn't like his dad at this point, and his dad's pretty cheesed about it. So then it cuts to Hiram, and then Reggie's dad is talking to him in the office, and Reggie's dad is basically upset with Hiram, saying like, you can't do this. Please, like, my son doesn't need to be here with you. And Hiram's basically like, tough shit. He's an adult. Like, he can make his own decisions. So like, bye. It's like not my problem. And then it cuts back to Reggie, and he's giving Hiram the gun. He finds the gun. And Hiram tells him that his dad came by to talk to him, and Reggie's really, really pissed off about it. So he's like, if you want to work for me, you got to like get your house in order. So like figure that shit out first. Yeah. So he goes and talks to his dad. This is a lot of back and forth. Sorry, everyone. But
it's
he goes
really quick though. Like,
it's very quick.
The way they edited it was like doom, 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 boom, boom, I was like, boom, oh my God, like I'm losing track.
So he talks to his dad at the lot, and his dad is like sitting there so sad, and he's like, I'm so ashamed of you. And Reggie has this moment where he basically calls him right out, and he says, you're ashamed? Are you kidding me? He's like, you beat me. You punched me down all the time, but I stayed. After all you did, I stayed. Well, not anymore. And in this moment, I even wrote down, wow, Charles Melton, what a great job delivering what he delivered.
God. Yeah, he was so beyond good. Like, honestly, that was like his acting in that moment was probably one of the strongest out of like Archie, out of like
he's a really strong actor.
You know what I mean? Like he had such an amazing monologue, and the writing was so powerful that it was like, I'm like, did the writer like have a moment like with his dad or something? Because it felt so. I mean, it felt like
so real. Yeah, absolutely. It felt very, it was definitely rooted somewhere, but it was really cool to see the interaction.
Like, I stayed. I was
like, I mean, because we hear about, we hear on the side, like in the past where his dad kind of like gives him a black eye here and there or whatever in the past, but we don't really sit with that story for very long. Yeah. So having this kind of like 7-year gap where he can now step forward and be like, go fuck yourself to his dad, it is this powerful moment for him, and it was really cool. And at the end of the day, he does say, Hiram has done more than you ever will. And from what I know, he has never laid a finger on his wife or his daughter. So like, bye.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really powerful way to end off the entire moment with his dad. Then it cuts to Hiram and Reggie talking over a drink in his office. And basically Hiram asks like, what's going on with your dad? And Reggie says, to be honest, like, I don't have a dad at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hiram's like, well, let me tell you a story about my daddy.
It started.
Yeah. So
it was good.
I loved it because he basically says like, because I think Reggie says like, what about your dad? What's your story with your dad? And he's like, well, that's a long time ago. And then it just like transitions.
Oh yeah, like it's not that long ago.
But it does like transition in a cool way. Like it's very different.
I loved it. Like
it felt like a movie. Like it felt like you were starting a movie, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So cut to New York City, 1988. Shout out to 1988.
That's when we were born.
We're so old now. Young Hiram and his dad are shining some guy's shoes, and young Hiram is introduced in this one scene, and it is none other than Michael Consuelos, who is Mark Consuelos' actual son. So very cool. We'll talk all about that a little bit later. But so you see the scene. His dad, Javier, is shining these shoes for this guy. And the guy seems like he's like, oh, I forgot my money. I forgot my wallet. And I thought it was going to be like a scammy moment. But then it turned into like this thing where he's like, actually, I have this piece of palladium. Yeah. It actually is worth more than $100. So like, take it. And so take it and you can like buy shit with it. And Javier kind of starts getting excited. He's like, where'd you get this from? Yeah. And he talks about the fact that it's in this little town called Riverdale. Mm-hmm. And Javier's like, oh, by Sweetwater River. And that's, I guess, like where it all really stems, because then he gets very excited about this. And then in the narration, Hiram saying how they moved to Riverdale at that point in time. Yeah. And Javier even worked in the mines, and there was like a collapse in the mines, but they still found no palladium, but they continued to stay in Riverdale to try to make their American dreams come true. Mm-hmm.
Very traditional, very
that immigrant story.
Yeah, totally right. So.
Totally relatable and understandable. Yeah, it was really cool. It's like this really, they did it so fast. Like to your point, like things moving so fast in the beginning of the episode. The fact that they fit all this into one episode. Yeah, I was like, that's some pretty tight writing.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was very tight, and the way they like the scenes all happened was very tight. Because I got to like halfway through and I was like, oh my God, there's still like half an episode left. Like I feel like I've seen like a lot, but
a lot of
that's the thing. Like when something is planned and something is written perfectly, you can do it all. Like you can have it all, totally. Like I don't believe that like just because you have a time cap that, you got to go off the rails in your writing. No, like you can make it work. So
for sure. So then it cuts to the front of Pop's Diner, and Hiram and his dad are shining shoes in the front of Pop's Diner.
So he's no longer working at the mines. He's like now going back to shoe
now he's
shining
like back to shoe shining. Exactly. Yeah. And I guess Hiram just like sitting there beside him, and he actually watches through the window. He sees like the whole gang. So he sees like Alice and Fred, and they're all just kind of hanging out, and it shows him kind of like peering through the window, which is like, it's very symbolic as to like his damage toward them later on, obviously. And then later on that night, Hiram, like young Hiram, he gets money from someone who looks like a gangster. Like someone gets his shoes shined.
Hey man, if you want to come here, you give me money. Yeah. And like, okay, that's the guy.
That's the one. So as he leaves, he gets this good money, and then Hiram's all excited and he goes to his dad. But then Javier says, it's so weird calling him Javier because it's like Hiram. Anyway, Javier says like he's bad news, like don't follow what he's saying, he's a gangster, so like just keep away from him. So then it cuts to Riverdale High, and Hiram obviously has this like huge crush on Hermione, and he tries to talk to her, and she like flat out like cuts him down. She's
like you're not good enough for me.
Not good enough.
My mommy told me to stay away from you.
Like you're a shoe shiner.
Like imagine you're in high school and like someone came up to you. You would never say like my mom told me I have to talk to you. Like why you gotta bring your mom into this? Yeah. Like geez, just say that you don't like me.
She's like, I want to be rich, so get out of my face.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was pretty tight. He's like, basically, like, I can't be with you because I'm poor. So she dips.
But then he even says, he's like, Veronica, isn't your mom like a cleaner at 5 Seasons?
Yeah.
Like, as if like she's like any different. He's like, they're the same, like they're working family. She's like, no. It's not okay.
She's like, but she doesn't want me to be with someone who's a loser. So bye. So then it cuts to him going to see this gangster. And
Vito.
he introduces himself. His name is Vittorio Alto, but everybody calls him Vito, and he hires him as a delivery boy. Cut to an entire movie of Goodfellas, basically. It's like,
so
it's like
yeah, so this
Goodfellas.
movie, so this episode is like one of my favorite movies is A Bronx Tale, and it's like a very like underrated film. I feel like not a lot of people have seen it. This was A Bronx Tale. Like the writer 100% watched this film and he was like, I need to write, like there was lines that was from that film,
Straight from that film.
and it's all about, you know, a boy, and he meets the mob guy that's like running the neighborhood, and then his dad, who's like the working man, who's like the honest man, and then the mob guy who was like a nice guy, but he's like, I'll make you more money, like come work with me and like you can make more money,
right,
and I'll give you a car and you go like date your girl and like
Yeah.
get her, like, so it was very, very tied to like that film.
Got it.
And there's so many like references to that, but they mix other films too, which was fun
Yeah.
because it's like you're not knowing what's gonna come. Like
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
Godfather in there too, and a
For
bunch
sure.
of other things. So but yeah, this is like the start of his sort of
Gangster
storyline.
Yeah. So he hires him to be this delivery boy, and he's in an alleyway. He makes his first delivery. And the guy at the door kind of makes fun of him. He says like, oh, you types of people always take the shitty old, like, you know, the jobs that nobody wants. And he's kind of referring to the fact that he's Spanish.
And like, who are you, buddy? You're accepting the drugs. So
like you are,
or the money. Like, so what are you?
You people. So I mean, it was 1988, so I guess like that's what people said. So then he goes back to Vito, and he asks how the delivery went, and Hiram basically says, yeah, it went fine, but the guy at the door kind of made me feel shitty about like who I was as a person and like my background. He kind of made fun of me, and he's like, it's fine, don't worry about it, here's a bunch of money. And then in the voiceover he says, you know, whoever said money does not buy happiness is a sucker. And I was like, I want to put that on t-shirt.
The working man is the sucker.
Yeah,
that was the line from the film, and I was like, okay, I think
it's like exactly that.
Like,
So then it cuts to Hiram going home, and his dad notices his shoes because he's been like, you know, doing these good jobs, these delivery jobs,
fancy shoes.
So he gets these fancy shoes, and he lies to his dad. He says, you know, like, I'm working at the grocery store across the street. And his dad is like, okay, cool. But clearly he doesn't really believe him. So then he cuts to Riverdale High again. And now he walks in.
He's like,
It's like
with
very like
his
disco
leather
fever.
shoes, yeah.
He's got that like leather jacket on, and he kind of like hollers at Hermione in class, and she's like, no, I said no again. And then she turns around. She wasn't
looking at him, and then he's like, do you want to go out with me? She's like, no. And then she's like, and then she sees like his leather jacket.
Yeah,
like it didn't look like she saw anything, but she was like, okay, yeah.
It's like that meme where like
see?
the guy's like looking back at the at the other woman.
Yeah.
So she's excited, and I was like, I ain't saying she a gold digger, but like, girl,
she a gold digger.
Right off the top, girl. Like that leather jacket like really got you.
It's so funny because like everyone was commenting like, wait, so like did Hermione really love Hiram? Because like it really looked like she just married him for the money.
And she cheated on him. Like, we're gonna just keep that.
Like the only reason why she wanted to go with him because like he's gonna go to New York and he has money. So it's like, hold up here. Did she love Hiram?
Everybody's out here hating on Hiram. Like she was the one like being the gold digger in the beginning. So anyway, it cuts to the front of Pop's diner. It was a really cute moment where Hiram talks about his family, and Hermione talks about her mom and her family and how like they're both poor.
Very
and
cute.
They bond over it, which was really cute.
And the whole time it's Michael, right? Like it's Michael as Hiram. So
exactly.
Cute.
Very cute. And he says like, or she says even, I wish there was a way to repay my mom. And he's like, me too. Like, I want the exact same thing for my family. And then he goes on to say that he has a secret job. And then she was like, oh, who you're working for? He tells her all about like Vito. And she was like, he a gangster though. And he's like, it's fine, whatever, I'm making money. And he tells her this dream of him having a penthouse in New York City, which is kind of cool that he says it, and then you like know that happens later.
Yeah.
But in that moment, as soon as he's like excited, he's like ready to be like, I got this girl. Police come in and arrest him for drug trafficking.
Yeah, like that was fast.
What? So in jail, they're trying to get him to talk and confess that
can't be no rat.
He can't be no rat, so he keeps his mouth shut. And as soon as Hermione realizes what's going on, she goes to see Vito, tells Vito what's happening, and then Vito bails him out.
It was a really cool turn of events that I didn't see coming, but I'm like, it's so who they are. Like she's a part of his journey just as much as like it's him too. It's her.
Yeah.
She's going there and she's like, she knows exactly what's up. She knows exactly what the circumstances are, but she's down for it. She's in that life.
It was interesting. It was almost like she knew exactly what was happening from the get-go. Like she's like, he's a gangster. I need to meet him in this place. Like she obviously knows more than the police do. Like
for sure. One thing that they never got right, or like I feel like they lost their way in writing Hermione, was that when we saw her in that season 2, I think she felt like she was the boss. Like she was making calls being like so and so, so and so, so and so. But then that person disappeared. It was as if like that never happened to Hermione. And we were left being like, hold on, like, didn't she have she had a part in this? It's like the writers like wrote that out of her character. It was so weird. So this kind of felt like that. It
kind of came back that she had a bit of a mobster kind of gangster understanding as well. Like her grandma was a badass too, so I don't know.
That was
I don't
the
know
only thing of the inconsistency where I was like, I don't know why they did that to her character. Like they were going one way with her and then like
they
as
switched.
if that never happened.
Yeah, for sure. I don't understand that. I was actually thinking about it during this episode. I was like, are they ever going to talk about like her gangster background?
Like
because apparently that's like she was a bit of a kingpin too. Anyways. So he's in jail. He gets bailed out by Vito. Then at the restaurant, he talks to him. He asks him if he ratted. Obviously Hiram says, no, I didn't. And Vito says he's really proud of him. And then he promotes him. He's like, you're not going to do any more of those dealer jobs anymore. You're going to be doing something else. You're going to be like he's doing something else.
He got promoted. Basically, like in one day he got promoted.
Yeah, exactly. He asked him about his dad and whether or not he's told him the truth or not.
Yeah.
And his dad, he's like, no, I'm just still keeping a secret. And he says something really interesting. He says, you're still worrying about people's expectations when you have to be worrying about yourself. And I'm like, that's kind of like across the board life lesson for everybody watching. Like for me, I'm like, I just like, it's one of those things where you just hear and you're like, true. Like sometimes you worry so much about what other people are thinking. You just got to do you, boo.
One of the things that I loved about this movie, A Bronx Tale, was that it was the first time, at least for me, that I watched a movie about the villain, about the mob guy. But he gave him such great advice. And it was like this moment where he's like looking at him and he's being very blunt and he's telling him how life is, not this like little
sugarcoating
world that his dad tried to protect him from. He was more of like the realist and was like, just be your authentic self because you only have one life to live and this is who you are. And so like hearing that again in Riverdale, it's kind of unusual that you're hearing it from like someone who like you're supposed to be afraid of. You're supposed to like fear. But like, it's just an interesting dynamic. It's a very interesting dynamic that both of those men were the father figures in a sense, but very different. Like how, like,
for sure. And it goes to show that, there is layers to characters. They're not always just all bad. Like even if in The Godfather, he's doing it for his family, it's all that, right? It's all about the balance around, they're still good people. They have good intentions.
How do you justify
but they kill people.
Right. Because it's like, like how far are you going to go then?
Exactly. So he also finishes off by saying, by the way, that girl that came in to help you out, like go marry that girl. Her name's Hermione. And he's like, okay.
He's like,
so it's all like connecting. Then it cuts to Riverdale High and he shows her car keys because she's like, I don't want to see you.
Yeah,
again.
he was like, hello. She's like, hell no. She's like, you just got arrested. She's like, no. I don't want anything to do with you. He's like, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, when I get the ding-a-ling. And she was like,
so yeah, because that was a part of his like promotion, I guess. He gets his car. So then it's at the front of Pop's diner.
so she's fully a gold digger.
She's fully a gold digger. Like Hermione, come on. So like I can't save you from the storyline. So they're in front of Pop's diner in the car, and he talks about the fact that he wants to change his name. And because we keeps calling him Hiram this entire time, he's been calling him, his name is Jaime Luna.
Yeah.
His family name is Luna. And he says he wants it to be powerful and different. And he says, I want it to be Hiram Lot. So that's his original like thought. And he's like kind of talking it out with her. And he's like, I want it to be Lot because like I'm gonna have a lot. And I was like, that's so cute.
I was like, I didn't understand what he said
like,
the first time. And then I watched it back and I was like, that's why he thought, because I'm going to have a lot. Okay, name your last name like Money or something. Like, I'm going to have
50
a lot.
Cent. Yeah, like 2 Chainz. Like, Hermione goes on to say, like, that's a terrible last name. She's like, I like Hiram, but Lot sounds terrible. What about something that has like power and money behind it? Lodge. So she kind of names him in a sense. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a huge bombshell. Huge. Like when that happened, I was like, she's the one that created him.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it in that way.
For sure. Like she had a hand in naming him, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. And that kind of solidifies their relationship at that point in time, because then they kiss and it's a really sweet moment. You now. Yeah, he's like, we're gonna get together now. You're gonna be a lodge. A lodge. So then it cuts to Riverdale High, and they're taking attendance, and of course he has to like talk it up, and he's like,
promo moment.
My name is not Jaime anymore, it is Hiram Lodge. And then in the back, obviously we have people snickering. Reggie's dad is like making fun of him, and he's like, I'm still gonna call you a shoe shiner, loser. And then it cuts to this moment where like he starts to rage on the inside, and then after class and I guess like auto shop, he kicks like everybody's ass. He like beats up his friends. He went off on them. And
this was the moment too where like Michael's acting, I was like, oh my god, like he's really good. He's committed to this. Yeah, like it was intense. It's something that we didn't necessarily see in that episode that he was in, like the flashback. It wasn't a lot of this intense acting. This was like Michael.
This is a lot. Like, Michael. No, it was really good. Michael.
You could act.
You could act and you could kick someone's ass. It was really, it was really intense. I was like, shit. Because I think that you, like, just going back to that really quickly, I think in the first times you see Hiram, you always kind of just assume that he's like this scrawny rich kid that like made his money somehow, maybe. Well, at least that's kind of how I perceived him, because you don't see him like
true. I had
beating people up, you know? I had so then when you see him in this moment, you're like, oh, he's out here breaking people's legs at like 15. So like he means business.
Yeah.
So then he goes home, and Hiram's dad hears about this. Javier hears about this fight, and he's like, what happened? About like, why did you beat up those kids? And also like, it was over the fact that you wanted to change your name. And
he's like, you're so embarrassing. Who does that?
So he like rips into him, and he goes like, I can't believe you changed your name. Like, and don't even don't even pretend that I don't know about the gangster stuff. Like, you're obviously getting your money from that gangster. He tells him like, that man's going to ruin you. It's going to cost you everything. You're such a stupid little boy. And he fights back, and he says like, I'm not a Luna anymore. I don't want to be a Luna. You're embarrassing. You can't even buy mom like a dishwasher. You can't even buy your,
you don't even have like shoes. I'm like, are they gonna come to the shoes? I thought for a second they were gonna
be like socks on the outside,
like with holes in them.
Yeah, I felt so bad. He rips into his dad. I was like, holy, he rips
him another one.
Yeah. And
but the mom was just so useless. She's like, oh,
she's like,
I was like,
that sucks. Yeah. I do wish that she had a little bit more of a role. Like she was like, at least intervened and said like, you know, because you don't really know what her story is.
I guess it doesn't really matter, right? Like it's about father and son. So it's like,
for sure.
Plus like at those times, first of all, it was 88, but like I feel like they were trying to replicate like 1956. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was
like the Housewife.
Like it wasn't that like that many years ago, but they're trying to make it feel like it's that, like even their apartment looked like it was 1950s. Like
it's true.
The woman
really
didn't get
poor.
involved at that point, right? She's just trying to like keep her head down and like not get involved. That's how it was at that time. But I mean, 88's not that long ago.
Not that far ago. Yeah, exactly.
old.
I don't know. I also just feel like, you know, maybe like they didn't even feel like she needed to be there, outside of the fact that like he had a wholesome family. Like, why was she there?
It's true that in those moments I'm like, why was she even there? But like, I guess
like once
it's trying
the dad
to show like the familial like unit.
Moment. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
He's doing it for his family. It's not just doing it for his
dad.
Just
like the dad. Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
anyways,
he finishes it off by saying, being your son is embarrassing. Like, done. Mic drop. Like, gagged. Like, it was such a sad moment. And then it cuts to Javier going to see Vito, and he pleads with him, and he says, you know, he asks him to leave. He's like, I don't want you to like have my son here. And he says the same thing, which was such a crazy moment to watch it, like kind of almost parallel. He's like, he's old enough to make his own decisions. He's an adult now. And it's like a perfect mirror to what Hiram in present day says to Reggie's dad, like in the beginning of the episode. So like watching that moment again, you're like, oh shit, like, is he realizing the things that happened in his life while he's talking to Reggie, telling the story, saying like, oh shit, I just did that with your dad?
I think so.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very cool. And then his dad unfortunately makes the decision to threaten to expose a gangster.
Yeah.
And on the side tip, I wrote, like, even in 1988, the Riverdale police are like garbage, because even a shoe shiner can put together the fact that there's a gangster on the streets and he lives in the back of a restaurant. And he literally is like, I'm going to expose you. I'm going to tell you da 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 da. And Vito is like, okay, like, you know, chill, we'll be in touch. Like, I'll think about it. Like, very, very Godfather moment, like super close up on his face.
Again, this scene from the Bronx Tale. Exactly. Okay. He goes to the mob guy. He goes, don't leave my son alone. He's like, this is enough. He's like, that's my son. I'll like tell him like how to live his life. So when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, like he's not gonna like kill him, because in the movie he doesn't kill him. She just says like, back off, like learn, like know who you're talking to. Know your place. I'm the mob like boss, kind of, right? So he doesn't kill him. He doesn't do anything to the dad. So I was like gagged when like there was a hit on
after
him.
That happened.
I was like, they took it to the next level.
They took it to the next level. So it cuts to the present, and Hiram has this moment where he kind of just reminisces on his dad and who he was as a person. He says, you know, my dad believed in human nature and that humans were good, but he was wrong in this situation. So then it cuts to Pop's diner, the front of Pop's diner, where he's shining shoes. And it was such a sad moment because, you know, Javier is like so lit for the day. He's talking to Pops on the side. He's like, you know what? I feel good. I just had a fight with my son, but like, it's fine. Yeah, it's a new day. And then as soon as he's like ready to like set up shop, a car rolls in and like pop shoots him dead. And not that I'm not expecting something like this to happen. It was more just like, holy shit.
It was
like very aggressive.
So it's definitely copying a scene from Godfather, the first one. When when they shoot Vito, and it's like even the way he's like on the ground, like after at the end, it's like
it's very like that like, aerial shot.
Like it's copying that. Even this is so crazy. Even in the Godfather, when he gets shot, he's at the fruit market, so he's holding a bunch of fruit.
So like the orange falling and stuff like that.
When he dies, or like when he gets shot in Godfather, like the fruit goes everywhere, and it's kind of like around his body. And it's funny how like in this one it happened too. Like Pops is holding the oranges,
right?
He gets shot, and then the oranges are like fall. I'm like,
everywhere.
Oh my god, they really thought of everything. Like
they really crazy. Like put that in there.
Yeah.
So. R.I.P. Javier, he dies in that moment.
And like J-Lag was saying, like offline, he was like take him that use like machine
guns to kill
like
this one. Like, did they
I'm
have
pretty
to go
sure they
off,
killed
like...
people in Pops. The people that were inside, they're dead too, because like that shit went everywhere.
And how did Pops not die? He was literally right beside him.
Like, what kind of
the
aim
car
do you
was
have
moving.
with that gun? Like it's like, and then like Pops is fine. Just the oranges went everywhere.
Yeah, just the oranges flew out of his hand.
His life.
Like, wow. Yeah. Anyway, yeah,
But it was just so funny. Like, I was like, where did they find that gun? Also, it looked so fake. It was like,
yeah.
like the guy who like shot him was like, oh, how do I get this in the window now? So
it was very
cheesy.
extra. It was a very extra moment.
Yeah, like why don't you just have a gun, pop pop, and then like go
very Riverdale, or do it like when he's down an alleyway. I know that like you like you said they were doing it to like mirror a moment, but
yeah,
I just thought
something like that. But yeah,
anyway,
it's more like visual, like pops, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So then it shows Hiram going to see you know, his dad's body at the coroner's office, and he names him and he's like, yep, that's my dad, and he's really, really sad about it. And then it cuts to the funeral and we are introduced to Apollonia, which is Hermione's mother. Is that her name? Apollonia? I wrote that. That's what I wrote down. I don't know if that's what I heard right.
I don't remember.
But she goes to Hiram and his mom and says like, I'm sorry for your loss. And Hiram kind of like shades her and he says, you know, yeah, even for a lowly shoe shiner, like he was a good guy.
That was so good that he said that, because she was like, she was like, error. She's like, I don't know what to say anymore. She's like, you're right. She's like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Like,
she apologized.
He wasn't good. Yeah, I was like, that's So it still shows you that like he's keeping the honor of his father, even though like they ended off like in really shitty terms.
For sure. And also, I guess it feeds into that relationship that he ends up having with his mother-in-law, which is like, I have all the power, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, now we're getting like
I'm like, too much, too
like
deep.
Your mother-in-law?
Yeah, I don't
I'm like, I know about
that. So then we get a really cute moment with Penelope, who's played by Cheryl.
Oh my God, this was amazing.
Madeline Page. And
you know what it is, J-Lag? Like, we got such little glimpses of the other characters, but it was enough. I was glad that we still got to see them, and like they added that like comedic relief for like 30 seconds, and then it was over. It was like, we don't need them always in the episodes, you know, like not in this episode.
And I think that, you know, I think there were some comments about the fact like, who cares about Hiram's story? Like, I wanted to see more of like Fred and Hermione and Hiram, like that like love triangle story again.
Maybe we'll get to that in a later,
maybe we'll get to that, maybe we won't. But this was like not the episode for it. It was obviously a story for Hiram's backstory. Like, let's give it to what it is.
So in that moment, Veronica actually protects him, right? Like she stands up.
It's like a moment where she stands up for him.
I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, she kind of pops off on them too. So Alice, who's played by Betty / Lily Reinhart, and they're all talking in the back, and Penelope kind of goes by and she's like, let's not sugarcoat this. Your boyfriend is a gangster. And she calls them out and she's like, can either of you skanks say anything about helping your family? And Alice is like, at one point in time, like Alice is like, I didn't say shit. Like Lily's face was like, I was just talking to you.
Yeah,
it was a really, really funny moment.
It was funny.
And then you see Vito coming in to pay his respects, and this is when Hiram kind of like in his mind, he's like obviously like pissed. He's like, oh, he's here at my dad's funeral when he's the one that like done killed my dad.
At this point, does he know that it was him that killed his dad?
I feel like he may assume that that's the case. I mean, like he's the only gangster in all of Riverdale. Yeah. But then I think what really locks it in is at the very end, he's like, you know, at least you can be the man you were destined to be. So like, it's almost like he's alluding to the fact that like, now that your dad's out of the picture, you're good. So he's back at home and his mom basically tells him like, you need to be done with this gangster business. Your dad is dead now. So like, you need to finish. And he's like, yeah, that's totally fine. Whatever. But he doesn't. And he decides to go visit Vito at the restaurant, and he doesn't find Vito, but he finds like 3 of his thugs sitting in the back, like playing cards, eating food, whatever. Yeah. And he literally is like, did Vito call someone to kill my dad? And they're all like,
they're like, you can play some poker though. And if you want, and he's
like, do you want to hang out here for a little bit? Yeah, he blows them all up. Like, it was such a moment where I was like, oh, okay, we're like gonna go there in this moment.
It was like, it happened, like it escalated pretty quickly.
Like,
and he committed murder. Like 4 people.
And he's like 16 years old. Like, he's out here like
I didn't think it was gonna get like, I could see him killing Vito, but like I didn't think he was gonna kill like the associates like at the table.
Or at that moment he was gonna be like, and then I like decided I would spend the rest of my life plotting my revenge or something. Like he was just like bah, 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 bah. But you also told me, because I'm not a gangster movie person, you're like the expert here, it's like a pure throw to Godfather.
Yeah, so the first scene in the beginning of the episode when he enters that same like cafe, the train is like the sound
It's
effect
like,
of the train is like, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the scene in The Godfather when Michael is planning to kill the man who shot his dad.
right.
But then nothing happens in that first scene. But then this one, they introduce us again and again. The train is like the train's like coming, and I'm like,
And
okay,
that's when
now he's gonna kill him because in the movie that's when he
like
kills
hears
him
the
to
train
mask-
almost.
He kills him to mask the bullet of the train. So the train is meant to mask the sound of the bullet in the movie because he kills him in like the middle of like a cafe. So he doesn't want it to sound like he's killing someone. So he waits for the train to come to pull the trigger. That's the purpose of the train in the movie.
God.
But this one is just like he doesn't even wait for the train. He's like, it's like
Just kills everybody.
so I sent J-Lag the video. I'm like, watch it for this part.
Yeah.
And J-Lag's like, oh my god. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm wondering why there's a train like
Yeah.
plowing through this restaurant.
Like, are they literally right beside the train tracks? Like, what
So like
the
all
hell's
these
happening?
little things, right? That
Yeah.
like you pick up on, and that like once you get it, you're like, okay, that makes more sense. Because you're probably like, wait, why is this train like so
Why is that
lit
even
right now?
happening? Yeah, it was so extra.
It was funny, but it was an intense scene. He ends up killing them all,
Yeah.
but he can't find Vito. He doesn't find Vito.
He doesn't find Vito, and he even says in his voiceover, like, I don't know where he went that day. Like, I'm not sure what happened to him. And he's like, I don't know why he wasn't there. But he does say, like, at that point in time, like, he never sees him again. Vito ran away, and like it was the kind of like he'll know what will happen to him if he ever comes back to Riverdale, essentially. But it was a really funny scene. I really want to quickly talk about this, where he comes home from Pop's diner covered in blood all over his face, and his mom's like waiting for him. He's holding these cups and he's like, I'm gonna go put these in the fridge now, and he's like filled with blood. I was like, how did you order 2 shakes?
And also, like, why are you putting it in the fridge? Don't you want to drink it now?
But also, I was just like, how did you walk in with blood all over your face and like no one said anything?
That like he's so disassociated from like what actually just went down. Yeah, he's so disconnected. It's just showing you how the monster is sort of starting to be.
He is the one. He became the monster.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the end of the story. Essentially, Hiram. He goes on to say, like, Hiram became like the new big fish in a small pond. Like, you know, he was like the big guy in Riverdale. It shows him actually someone shining his shoes. He gives him the like money. So it's like that full circle moment for him. And then it kind of has a quick flash forward of him being, he's like, I was focused on being a father and a husband.
I love that, like, Reggie's like, he's so cute. Like, he asks all the questions that like I'm gonna ask.
Yeah.
Like, he's
so
like,
what happened?
And he's like, and then I got married, Reggie. And then it like shows like Hermione and the baby. And then he's like, and then what happened? And then he's like, and then he's like, but what made you come back? Like, he was such a good like journalist. I was like, Reggie, you're asking all the right questions
like,
right now.
Vanity Fair over here. Good job. So there's a really quick shot of Veronica as a baby and young Hermione. So shout out to Marisol Nichols.
So it was her. It was her.
Just with bangs.
And definitely like her eyelashes. Like they do.
Yeah, they like
fake.
changed her makeup and everything for sure. She looked very different. So he does say that, you know, once the baby came, Hermione like pleaded to him, said like okay, we need to leave this back. Like, this was what your dream was. Let's go to New York to that penthouse. And he's like, okay, let's go.
He's like, whatever you want, I'll do.
And that's kind of just like where that story ends. And then Reggie goes on to ask, like, well, what brought you back to Riverdale? And he says, well, we found like very little palladium while I was like, you know, a mobster. And that's when he came in to keep looking. And that's why he bought the prison. That's why he was digging.
And then Reggie's like, oh, like that's why they could just be digging all day and like no one would ever like ask questions. He's like, exactly. I'm like, everything is starting to make sense now.
Yeah.
Like,
so like season 3
3
through 5 like all makes sense now, because like the entire time we're like, why like F Hiram and his effing prison, sure. Why is he even like, what is this all even happening? But like now it all really makes sense. But yeah, he wasn't very successful. He only found a little bit, but he did find like a source underneath the maple blossom or the blossoms of maple groves, which is why he was trying to buy them from Cheryl, and he still wants to get that from her place.
Yeah.
And he says, like, I want to finish what my father began. And Reggie's like so in awe of him. He's like, oh my God, you're so unstoppable. Like, what more can a man want? And Hiram kind of like asks him, he's like, is that what you took away from the story? Is like, you know, like that I'm unstoppable? Because he's like lit. Like, obviously Reggie, this young guy, is like, oh my God, like I want to be a gangster too.
Yeah.
So Hiram's like, you know what, let me just like let's go do this final task. You need to drive me to a nursing home.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, we're gonna go visit Vito. I think he even says it in that moment.
Yeah.
So then you see the scene where he walks into Vito's room. Vito at this point is like, what, 25 years older? So he's like super old, but he looks exactly the same. Like they like maybe put a gray wig on him. And Hiram kind of like rolls in and he's like, do you remember who I am? I'm Jaime Luna. He like kind of lays it all down. It was kind of a cool moment where he's like able to like finally face this guy he's been searching for all this time. And he's like, I've been looking for you for like a long time. And he's like, do you remember what I said to you the first time I saw you? He said, I wanted to be feared like you. So you tell me in this very moment, are you afraid of me? And I was like,
but the guy's like, I can't talk anymore.
He's like, error. He's like trying to press the button. Yeah. And he says something in Spanish, which I can't even repeat because like it was like something amigos,
but
adios.
Like, the guy's Italian, so it's like
he's like, he didn't even understand it. So I don't know. We're gonna have to ask Mark about that one. So he shoots him in the head, he puts a pillow over his head, he shoots him, and then he's dead. He like got his revenge. And then it cuts back to Hiram being driven back, or is it now
from Reggie
flipped? Like, is it like now Reggie's driving? Anyway, they're back in the car.
Driving Hiram back home, right? And then Reggie's like, I want to work with you, like whatever. And then Hiram's like, no, like I've had enough. I don't need you anymore. Reggie's like, no, like I want to do this with you. I'm okay to. And he's like, no, like I don't need your services anymore. Like go be with your dad and like figure that out. And he's like, no, I'm, like that's not what I want. And he's like, trust me, like that's what you want. He's like, give me one more chance to like prove to you like who he is. And like it was a really emotional scene,
very strong moment
that like Hiram was like, I wish I had another moment with my dad. He's like, I'd give anything to have like more time with him and like
back to like shine his shoes.
I was like fully like crying. I was like, this is so sad.
Very
and
strong moment.
Even Charles Melton was like, he was like, I don't know if he actually cried, but like he was like this, like wiping a tear because like it's true. What he's saying is totally true.
Yeah. You can't like get that back.
You can't get it back, right? And that's the first really moment where like Hiram truly admits that like he fucked up in a way, right? He's like,
for sure,
like I didn't get the time that I wanted with my dad.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. So, and like I did all this, and he was kind of right at the end of the day. He like lost everybody around him for this, all this like for power, and money.
So Reggie does go back to his dad, right? He goes back to his dad. He's like, dad. His dad's like, don't worry, I'm sorry. Like, let's work this out. Like, we're boys. And we'll work together, like we'll run the car lot, and that was cute too.
Yeah,
like
there was a really good moment because his dad basically like apologizes because he said he's ashamed of Reggie in the beginning of the episode. In this part of the episode, he's like, I'm ashamed of myself, which was kind of cool. Like it was like a different moment, right? Like he's like, I'm ashamed of myself and how I behaved toward you. He's like, I never done right by you, like not ever. And he's just trying to repent and trying to like make amends with Reggie. And Reggie's obviously like cautious, but he's trying to find a way to like move on and bond, like have a better relationship with his dad.
Hiram just told him into account and being like, this is still my dad. And you know, I still owe it to both of us to fix the relationship. It's too late.
So then we get this final scene, which I loved, and I'm so excited to talk about his dad. So it shows Hiram sitting in the house, and you hear this like voices. You hear like Hermione talking, and then I'm like, oh my God, he's watching the show. Like right away, I was like, he's watching Real Housewives of New York, and which like, Hermione's on.
Hermione's on, and like all you hear, she's like Dorinda told me that like when I was gonna come back, and I'm like, are you really gonna throw Dorinda under the Dorinda's like the coolest housewife. Like, how are you gonna throw Dorinda under the bus? But then like it shows him and he's like on the bed and he's like eating ice cream.
Yeah.
He's like fully watching an episode.
It was
And
so
like
cute.
the camera was so weird. It was like in Veronica's face. I was like, okay, like
Yeah, like they tried to make it look like
reality
TV, but like you guys have better
No.
cameras than
Yeah,
reality TV. Like
it's
chill.
like too much. And then it was cute because like he could hear them talking and he's like watching them and
Yeah.
he's like giggling and they're talking about him and he's laughing and she's like, remember how your dad was gonna retire 7 years ago? And she's like, yeah, remember? And she's like, yeah, he'll never do that.
She's like, whatever happened to his illness anyway? And that's when he kind of like
turned it
changes the
off.
channel.
She was like, because I was saying it too in my head. I was like, yeah, I'm like 7 years. I'm like, wasn't he sick? And that's
Hiram's
when
like,
Veronica
rewind.
was like,
We're all trying to forget that part of the storyline.
Veronica was like, wait, was he even really sick? And he's like, mute. It wasn't even like half human. It was like mute.
So we like never even get the answer. Like no one ever even tells us.
No.
And yeah, it was really, really cool to see that moment.
Cute.
Really, really cool way to like bring them in without like having them like visit him and talk about him.
And I'm so happy Marisol came back because I feel like if she didn't come back, it would have felt empty. This episode would have felt like it was missing a really big part of his life and the reason why he's done everything he's done. Like,
if
she
anything,
needs to be there, you know?
Yeah, if anything, I want to see like the lodges. Like I want to understand them a little bit more. Almost.
I feel like she's gonna be gone and then like that's it. But I miss her and I miss like their dynamic because I think as like we were talking about it before, like as much as it's his journey, it's her journey too. She created the man.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
and going to that, so then he gets this phone call or he calls somebody, he picks up the phone and you finally like realize that it was Hermosa who called him in the beginning of the episode and he's like, your grandfather is now avenged. And then he goes on to say like, you know, I can't stumble now. I've come this far. I'm gonna get like what my dad couldn't get.
Evidence, right? Because he was like, "Did you wipe?" She was like, "Don't worry, Dad."
Yeah. She's like, I took care of everything. Yeah.
I saw what you did. Bullet to the head.
So good job, Danny.
So,
yeah.
No.
Relax.
But his point is like, I don't need to slip up now. Like I've come this far.
Yeah. He's basically lost everything. So like if he stops now, like it'll be for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So he's like, he might as well just keep going deeper and then figures things out after.
Yeah.
And he does say something really cute where he says, like, once I get what my dad couldn't get, like I'll get back everything I lost too.
Yeah.
And
which
I was,
family, right?
and then it cuts to like them talking on the TV. And I was like, wow, what a great way to end this episode.
Totally.
I thought it was so beautiful. Very like, it was pretty heart-wrenching to watch. Like, you know, as much as we can hate on Hiram and everybody can see him as his villain, he's obviously a human with like a family and he cares about his family and all he wants is like his family to be happy. So he's just trying to figure shit out.
It had every single thing you could ever want. It had murder. It had romance. It had history,
Real Housewives.
It had Real Housewives.
What more could you ask for?
Like it had everything you could want in an episode. It was a full packed episode. And I'm just really impressed with what they did, how they did it. So happy. And they've set the bar up here now.
Yeah.
And I'm
100%.
just like, I don't what are we gonna get next time. Like I'm scared now.
No, but like as a standalone, like honestly, probably one of my favorite episodes of the entire series.
Yeah. 100%.
It was just so well done, great acting. Like you're always kind of concerned, or not concerned, but always weary about like, you know, what a character is gonna do when they come into a character. So like Michael playing his dad. And also like that pressure too for him as an actor. I thought he killed it. I thought they did such a great job. You know, him playing beside his dad was really cool to watch.
Really cool to see. And there was a chemistry that you just can't explain it.
Yeah.
They're just so natural beside each other. And I think he really is the perfect person to play him. His voice sounds exactly like
it was nuts how much he sounded like him.
Like we literally texted each other at the same time.
Exact same time.
Was his voice dubbed? Like it was so similar. And we're like, probably not. Like that's his son. So it's like, you're probably gonna have the same voice as your dad. But it was
like almost exactly. I was like, this is so uncanny how exact his voice is. I was like, wow, good job.
I loved it.
Congratulations to the Consuelos's
and Mikey. did awesome.
Yeah,
Super
great job.
proud.
So that is the end of the episode, but you do have a question, and I would
I do
love
have
for
a
you to ask this question.
Yeah, I do have a question. So one of the, we saw this whole thing with Hiram Lodge. We got his whole backstory, but Reggie Mantle, you forgot to ask one big question, which is, what happened to Hiram Lodge's Ponzi scheme?
Yeah,
Are we just not gonna talk about that? Like, we're
that
gonna
whole
just say
thing that happened in New
the
York.
whole thing which happened in New York, which is really the reason why
He went to
Hermione
jail.
came back to
Right.
to Riverdale, was because he went to jail because there was a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
So fine, I get this whole mobster avenue, but like, are we gonna discuss what happened with your Ponzi scheme?
Exactly. No, it's a good point.
Again, where the writing was like, I felt like either they forgot to talk about it, or they just were like, forget it, like that's not going to make
I feel like
sense,
they
so don't even
they
bring
probably
it.
just ran out of time realistically. Like, how are you going to fit the
But and also,
Ponzi
how do
scheme
you
storyline in
explain
there?
that? Can you even explain it?
Yeah, it's like, and then I cheated this person. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and
It's
then
just,
I basically con people out of money. Like, it's just
Yeah,
a whole.
it's too much.
But it's, if you're like, we're holding you guys accountable. Like, that was introduced as
You
part
don't
of his
put it in there if you
character,
don't want us to,
right?
investigate
so like, that's
that.
just a question that I was asking, and that's fine. Like, it's not a really big deal. Like, it's not going to make or break the episode.
No, not
It
at
was
all.
just something that I was like, oh, they didn't really touch on that, because that is
No.
really the reason why the
They
girls
come
came back
back.
to Riverdale.
For sure.
But then I also wanted to talk about the fact that, okay, you know what? I'll talk about it in my roundups.
Okay,
Talk about my roundups.
So before we enter the roundups, one comment from the listeners at lovearch.betty made a good point, which I didn't even think about because I wasn't thinking about the kids at all.
Yeah.
They say, I feel like Hiram has more respect for Reggie than Archie. Veggie secured endgame. Heart and lock emoji.
I would totally agree with that comment if I just didn't know that, like, obviously, like they're gonna play with Veronica and Archie more. But I think what she's saying is true, like in the sense of like, Reggie is her dad. Like,
yeah,
it does.
It's
make
true.
more
It's got
sense.
this like connection there for
Yeah,
sure. And
yeah.
there is more relatability in terms of what her past and like his history and her history. There's a connection there versus like Archie, who went to the war and is just like this wholesome small town boy. Like, it's not relatable content for her.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, opposites
Interesting.
attract, whatever. That is the dynamic, and that is kind of why there is that love triangle in even the comics. So
Yeah, exactly.
good point. But now let us get into these roundups.
Recap roundups. Best moment.
What's your best moment?
My best moment. Oh, it's really hard when you have an amazing episode, right?
Yeah.
Like, the whole episode is just a best moment. But my first one, I would say when young Hiram kills Vito's men, just because like it was The Godfather fully and truly one of my favorite films. Like, it was, that scene was just really iconic, and I loved everything about that. And then second, when Javier is gunned down in front of Pops, because again, it has like that throwback to the Godfather scene when Vito gets gunned down. So I just love those little nods to those films and those
Gangsta films, gangsta moments. My best moment is going to that final scene with Hiram alone in bed, and
I know
I loved his acting in it. I thought he was so cute in it because he's eating ice cream. He's so excited to watch a show about his like daughter and his wife, and like even the way that it ends with him saying that he like really wants things to work out and he really wants to get his family back. Like it just shows that like that's his next step, and this is what he's been trying to do this whole time. So, I mean, back to your point that you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, will he get there? Is he going to die trying to get there? We don't really know. I can see them playing with that idea of him like almost reaching that moment before like something happens to him. We'll see. Like, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what they do with that, but very cute moment. I love the way that they ended this episode. So good.
Agreed. And just a little tidbit. I asked Incesuelos what his favorite ice cream was.
Yes.
Or I tagged it as like, what is Hiram Lodge?
Choose one,
almost, right? Like, it was like mint chocolate chip and then rum and raisin, because like obviously rum. And then he was like pistachio. I'm like, true. If anyone's out there wondering, his favorite ice cream,
pistachio. Because he's nuts over nuts.
He's so nutty.
WTF moment.
What was your WTF moment?
WTF moment, I will say Hiram's revenge, just because like when Michael goes, sorry Michael, but you know,
Michael Consuelos.
Michael.
Michael.
I don't know why we keep saying that, but it's just funny. When he goes back to like shoot everyone, like guns everyone down, yes, like it was expected, yes, it's his revenge, I get it, but like we've crossed a point at this like there's a line that he just crossed and he just murdered people.
Yeah.
So whether or not we're looking at this guy as a villain or like, oh, he's just trying to like make a name for himself, he just killed people.
Yeah.
So it's still shocking, it's still crazy, you know. After that, you can't really turn back from that moment. So
Like that was really his turning point,
Yeah.
right? Like
yeah,
once you have blood on your hands,
exactly.
I don't
what it
know.
comes down to,
even if it's
blood
for
on your hands.
vengeance, like
Doesn't matter.
it was pretty cold-blooded what
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was pretty cold-blooded what they did. I don't know.
No, of course. And like that's
I'm
the
stuck.
thing. Like that's the game that you're in. As soon as you enter this world, like you are gonna have blood on your hands, and that's
Yeah.
the whole thing of like
True.
what will come back
Being a
to you
gangster.
in 30 years, what will come back to you in 40 years. Like it will come back to you.
Right. Good point.
I think
I'm like dun dun dun. I was like shit. My WTF moment is gonna go to when the guy rolls up in that car and it's like
Yeah.
all over pops
The
and kills
machine gun.
Javier. Yeah, I just thought it was very extra, and I remember at that moment I was like, "Whoa!" It's like I did not know this show was gonna go there, because we don't really see a lot of gun violence on this show. Like
It's
they really
true.
try to keep it
Yeah.
PG. So when you see like it full on gangster and like literally people are getting shot up and blood is everywhere, you're like, "Oh wow, they're like
And like you're right, like
murdering
it didn't
people."
need to be a drive-by. It could have just been like
Yeah.
a guy being like pop pop and then like walking away or something.
Yeah, they could have
was
done
like,
it in a different.
whoa.
It was very extra for one person, a shoe shiner.
For one
like,
guy who like
one
didn't
poor
really
guy.
do anything. He just kind of came by to you and be like, leave my son alone.
Leave my
Like,
son
he
alone.
He didn't rip you off. He didn't go to the cops. Like he threatened to go to the cops. He
Yeah.
threatened to go.
I just thought it was very extra. Like, was he trying to show like? Usually you do that to like threaten everyone
To
else. Be
scare
like,
people.
yeah, like this is. I'm just showing you guys what to do. Like, what's gonna happen
Yeah.
if you snitch. He's a poor shoe shiner. Like, what is he doing to anybody? Anyway,
MVP.
who's your MVP?
MVP. I'm gonna have to say a big shout out to the production crew
Yes.
because like
Yes.
without them, obviously this episode wouldn't have been possible.
Mhm.
It was just amazing from every single like department, and then also Michael.
Michael.
Michael
did so
came
good.
through. Michael came through. Michael did his job and he did it amazing. And I can't even imagine anyone else in this role other than
No.
him. And I truly
killed
hope
it.
that we get more of that because he played it. He brought such a richness to the character.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of that is like with the script and like the development of the story and all that too. But like there's just no one else that could play.
Yeah, for sure. I
And
thought he did it so
It
well.
was awesome.
And for him to take on, like, it was a whole episode basically. He was
Yeah, I
acting
know.
on his
Yeah,
own
yeah.
solo.
Yeah.
I mean, he had other people around him, but the fact that this was kind of his like first debut, pulling it through as like the primary character, I was
And-
really impressed.
Totally. And like we said before, just really quick, that first episode that he did, the flashback one, it was so quick. Like it was, and it was
He
the
doesn't even
full
speak, I don't
ensemble.
think.
So it was like very minimal, but like this one, I was like, holy, like you
Yeah.
earned your stripes. Like you
You done
killed
did
it.
that.
Yeah.
You did that, sis.
Yeah.
Good job.
well, this, bro.
Sis. My MVP is gonna go to Hiram and his dad as characters. I thought it was just
Yes.
like a really beautiful story to see like this son-father storyline.
Yeah.
And you know, even you got to shout out to Mark Consuelos as well for like playing a different character
Totally.
within the same show. He did play it softer. He did try to play it in a different way than you see this like gruff Hiram.
Totally. Yeah.
And then he like transitioned. He played 3 different characters in this whole
Yep.
one episode. Like he played his dad, he played like a young version of himself, and then his current self. So like it's a lot of flipping, and I was so excited to see how his character like turned into this like person. It was really, really interesting. I want to know what everyone else thinks. I feel like almost like sometimes we're in a bit of a box ourselves, and like
I think most
we're
people
like
liked it.
fangirling over
I
it.
think
But
most people liked it. I think
okay,
they did. Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
LVP.
Who's your LVP?
Oh, LVP. Okay, this is a good one. Okay, my LVP is gonna go to the ghost gun
Okay.
because I feel like it was placed there for some reason that's gonna bite him in the ass later on in the season.
You think so?
And also, like, why did he even need a gun? Like, he could have just gone up to him. The pillow was already over his face, which I thought he was just gonna like smother him and like suffocate him, because like the guy's almost like dead anyways.
Sure.
But then he uses a gun, and it's like, I feel like it's gonna come back, and that might be like the irony of the fact that the gun that you use to get your revenge is the thing that ties you to the murder and is your end all be all. Like, that is like some poetic justice right there.
That
like,
is, yeah. I mean, that's a moment for sure. But I feel like, I don't know if it's gonna come back. I feel like I don't know. We'll see.
I want it to be like that, because it's like it comes back, like it's that karma. But like,
yeah,
I don't know if you think.
I feel like he's got so much karma coming his way.
It could be like anything.
A ghost gun might not be the only thing that's gonna come for him.
I just thought it was weird that like he even used the gun. Like, just use the pillow. Like, you don't even need the gun.
I know, when he grabbed the pillow, I was like, oh, he's just gonna smother him. He's like, pop, pop. I was like,
okay.
He's like 75 years old.
Especially because he's already like in the hospital bed. Like, he's already dead. It's not like he's like at a bar or something.
He's gonna run away. He can't.
Guys are using like excessive gun violence for like no reason.
Gangsta. Pop, pop, pop. My LVP is going to that man himself, Vito.
That man himself.
That man, like, I was really thinking through the entire episode and trying to find someone who was an LVP, and like, everyone was so strong. Everyone acted really strong. True. I couldn't even give it to Reg's dad, because I thought that he had a really good moment too.
For my LVP, so times are hard.
Times are hard. So yeah, giving it up to Vito, who's the obvious choice.
Yeah, the best line.
What was your best line?
Best line is so Hiram says this. He goes, "You know, I'm nothing if not persistent," and I think he says that to Hermione. But correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Veronica has said this too. In like season 1 or something, when it's forced Archie maybe or something. Guys,
I mean, considering how she wants to like
she's like, I'm nothing
Archie.
if not persistent. Like, I feel like I've heard her say it. So I thought it was really, if that is like a connection there, like I thought that was really cute that like Hiram saying it like to Hermione.
Again, the same way.
I like that, because I do think that was there. And then I did like when Vito was like, it's not respect, it's fear. They don't respect me, they fear me. And like, that's a very like iconic, like,
it's a differentiation
mafia line, like,
right.
Anyways, no.
My best line is gonna go to Hermione at the funeral when she's defending her man against her girls, and she goes, his name is Hiram, and as for what he thought what would happen, he thought he would make a better life for his family, because family is more important to him than anything. Can either of you skanks say the same? And then she just like fucking walks off.
She just like walked away. They're like,
I was like, girl.
Okay.
And like, I get it for Penelope. It's like I said it earlier, I get it for Penelope because she was coming for Hiram, but like, Alice was like,
Alice wasn't doing anything. Yeah.
She was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
I thought it was such a good moment, such a good line.
And that's the thing, like they literally made use of every single scene in this episode.
Yeah.
In that scene, it could have just ended off with like Hiram being like, thanks for coming by. The fact that they show Hermione standing up for him shows you everything. In that one moment, you're like, no, like she's protecting him. She was
dedicated to him even at that point in time. Yeah,
and it just shows you. It shows a lot of who they were at that time, and who they become later. Yeah, for sure.
Let's get into your roundups, listeners. Thank you so much for submitting, even though it was a little hard this week.
You were a little down.
Just saying. So we're gonna go to Becca Sarah saying she didn't give a best moment this time around. Cool. WTF, Hiram's dad getting shot by a gangster. MVP, Hermione for being there for Hiram because he was trying to help his family. Also Hermione for trying to give Veronica a better life. Okay, cool. And then LVP, Vito, the guy who killed Hiram's dad and the school bullies. Okay, yeah, fair. And then best line, from that day forward, I was Riverdale's new boss. Leave this business behind, not just for us, but for your little girl. Okay, cute.
It's cute, yeah.
You go next.
CHONI 5 on it. Best moment, the car scene with Hiram and Reggie made me teary-eyed 100%.
Yeah, so
WTF, cute. Baby Hiram saying that he was embarrassed. I love that she's calling him baby.
Baby Hiram.
He was embarrassed to be Javier's son. That was very intense. MVP, the Consuelos family. I love the father and son duo, and I don't know if that's Michael's real voice, but he sounded like Mark a lot.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. Totally. Like, we thought the same thing.
Yeah, same.
LVP, young Hermione, Hiram basically turned to the mob because of her and the writers for being able to write episodes like this and not giving it to us. But they gave it to us, so we got to take it for what it is.
Yeah, we got to give him that for sure.
Best line, I don't have one, but I liked what Hiram said before he killed Vito.
In Spanish or whatever language it was. Mi corazón. And then we got one from IG at Mackenzie Burns said, MVP Jaime Luna, aka Hiram Lodge. Never thought I would say that about him. I mean, look at us all. Resolutions. LVP FP Jones, ha ha ha. And I wonder if that's because FP doesn't even show up in the episode at all. Like, Jughead is not in this episode.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Best moment, seeing Hiram let Reggie go and not repeat the mistakes he made. Good point. I really like that moment too.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he changed everything. WTF moment, Fred Andrews only saying present like the entire episode when they built up Fred, Hermione, and Hiram to be this huge deal for so long. No relationship drama between those three. Not this episode, but we've seen it for sure. Best line, there was a couple of great ones, but if you head north to Riverdale, it might just change your life. And ain't that the tea? And this is why we're sitting in these seats talking about this podcast.
Thank you guys so much for your roundups. There's a couple of like smaller ones. I'll just try to read quickly from Instagram. RVD_Sagittarius, best moment, Reggie giving his dad another chance and the two hugging each other. Zona, Shauna, Hiram watching Hermione and Veronica on the TV. Fanny says Fred raising his hand saying here. Thank you guys for sending these responses. It does sound like a lot of us had the same ones, and that's great because like that means that we're all on the same page. But I'm really impressed. I'm really happy with it. I think I'm gonna watch it again because it was such a good episode.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we close up, I would like to take this time to thank our patrons of the episode, our Rewinder squad, White and Nicole, our Lit Rewinders, Tina, Ann, Soleil, and Kate, and our Mommy Rewinders, Becca, Sarah, Tamala, and Grace.
Thanks, y'all. If you would like to join our Patreon family, check us out at patreon.com/recap_rewind. You'll get access to all of the cool things, exclusive contests, content, updates. And if you just like listening to us and want to like drop some like change, then go to the Patreon.
Like we're holding out our hats for you, basically, is what we're doing.
If you like our content, then it is what it is. If not, stick around and follow us on Twitter because now we don't have followers. Now we got a new account.
We need a new follower.
Followers.
Yeah, for sure. That being said, make sure you guys check us out on all of our socials. We still have our Instagram, recap_rewind. Twitter, our new Twitter, or all Twitter right now is recap_rewind pod. Don't forget that pod. And get our followership back up. And then YouTube, you can check us out there as well as Facebook. And you can find us out on Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all the podcasting things. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, following, as I mentioned, review, and comment to stay engaged with us at Recap Rewind. We love you all. Thank you so much for joining us.
And stay tuned for something secret.
A
little secret's coming after this.
Little secret. Can you keep it?
I can't.
Bye.
Bye.